want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, Donald Trump is always describing investigations into his actions as witch hunts and coups. But today he chose a much stronger word to describe the current impeachment inquiry he's now facing. This is what Donald Trump tweeted. So someday, if a Democrat becomes president and the Republicans win the House, even by a tiny margin, they can impeach the president without due process or fairness or any legal rights. All Republicans must remember what they are witnessing here, a lynching. But we will win. A lynching, as in what happened to black folks during the Jim Crow era. But folks, we got to keep in mind, Donald Trump is the master of distraction. Now, people were expressing their outrage all on social media. But here is why we're not going to fall for the okie doke, Donald. This is the real reason why Donald Trump tweeted that. Folks, it was planned. Let me say it again. This was a plan. This was a discussion that took place in the White House to throw us off track. Why? Because today, Bill Taylor, the acting U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, said in his House testimony today, the groups investigating the impeachment, that everything, including the release of military aid to Ukraine, was tied to the Ukrainian president publicly announcing investigations into Joe Biden and the 2016 election. This is what Donald Trump was trying to distract the media from. I'm going to bring my panel, Malik Abdul, Republican strategist, Kelly Bethea, communication strategist, Rob Richardson, host of the Disruption Now podcast. All right, folks, let's get right to it. Right, I'm going to start with you. I talked to sources today who confirmed that Donald Trump knew exactly what he was doing by using this language. He wanted to be able to throw this out to get the media all hot and bothered, and some folks fell for the okie doke because he wants more coverage of him using the word lynching than this Ukrainian ambassador testifying that there was indeed a quid pro quo when it came to Ukraine. That's why we're not wasting any time focusing on lynching. Rob, we're talking about Donald Trump being in big trouble when it comes to Ukraine.
Yeah, when you think about it, look, he said in a comment, look, water's wet. Donald Trump said something that's racially offensive. He did this, as you said, to distract about what's going on. Look, we have a traitor in the White House. I think we have to say that. We have somebody who is betraying the nation, betraying the laws. He thinks he's above the Constitution, that he's above the law. He's not. And so you have the current ambassador in there talking about the fact that there was a quid pro quo. And, you know, Donald Trump, or the present occupant of the White House, likes to say that there was no quid pro quo. Well, maybe he made his best Don Corleone. He made an offer he couldn't refuse. He said, I'll give you $400 million for aid, but only if you make these investigations. That is the textbook definition of a quid pro quo. It's illegal, and it's dangerous, the fact that our security would be at risk. Just so we have a president who can use the power of his office against his opponent. I tell people this: if you don't like Donald Trump, look, I don't agree with a lot of his politics personally, but what makes me nervous is the fact that he's going to try to use the power of this office to go after people. It's Joe Biden now, but it could be you next. So if you believe in America, you believe in the Constitution, you should be frightened. There's nothing conservative about this. This is very scary. He's betraying our nation, and he is a traitor, period. That's why he wants to distract.
Malik, this is what Donald Trump wants to do. He wanted to throw the media off of the focus of the Ukrainian ambassador, to folks to be all hot and bothered. Mainstream media falls for the okie doke every single time. That's why he tweeted. I was told point blank, this was a conversation took place before that tweet went out. He knew exactly what he was trying to do.
Well, I wouldn't doubt that Donald Trump knows what he's doing. That shouldn't surprise anyone. To the point about the the comments whether or not it's a distraction. Well, this is also not the first time that we've heard this before. We've heard many times that things that Donald Trump do, they're done to distract us from one thing or the other. Whether or not that's true or not, that's always the accusation that comes out. So I understand that you spoke with your sources, and your sources say that this is something that he's doing to distract us. Well, we've heard that before, so your sources could be right. Yeah, maybe so. But the idea that Donald Trump...
Not a question, my sources could be right. My sources, Kelly, are right.
Well, I mean, of course you would say that, because you would believe it. Why wouldn't you believe it?
No. See, here's the difference, Melik, between me and the other folks you deal with. Not a question of I would believe.
No, I'm on your show. We don't have to talk about other people.
No, that's my point. It's my point. When you have trusted sources, and the reason when you have trusted sources who have been right before, and they are right again, that's what you also base it upon. That's what we're dealing with here, Kelly.
I couldn't agree more. The distractions are becoming, frankly, just annoying at this point. I'm not even surprised that mainstream media is latching onto this, because it is a shock factor. The fact that he would say such, heinous things, but again, we're dealing with a stupid man. Stupid men say stupid things, and when you take those, when you put two and two together like that, this shouldn't be, a shock to anybody. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. And like you said, you have an ambassador at the of Ukraine saying that there was a quid pro quo. That is news. Another thing that happened today, one of Trump's top donors is being charged with tax evasion and donating almost $1 million in illegal campaign funds. That's in federal court right now. That's real news. But Donald Trump being a racist, that's old news. Donald Trump saying something stupid, that's old news. That shouldn't be a headline right now. We should just keep it pushing and actually get to the discussion at hand, which is the fact that there's an impeachment inquiry out right now, and he's scared. Donald Trump is scared as to what the Dems are going to find, and his days are numbered, and he's afraid of that. That part is news.
Yeah, and I think what he's very concerned about, to go to Kelly's point, he is concerned. He is trying to control the narrative. This is all this is. So don't listen to anything else. Donald Trump is doing what he does do best. Where I disagree a little bit is that he's not stupid on this. He's very strategic and very smart, and don't fall for it. Look, it is raining right now in D.C. Donald Trump wants to tell you that it's sunny, but the facts are real. They are not alternative facts. He's trying to make up new things. He's trying to distract you. This is not only is it news, the fact that we know what happened with Ukraine. It should frighten everybody. It should frighten conservatives. When they talk about a deep state, what they're talking about people that are Republicans that are appointed by Trump. Obama's not in office. Hillary Clinton did not win. The people that are coming forward are people that are appointed by Donald Trump. They are Republicans. And people, no matter what conservative media is saying, what is going on right now is threatening our democracy. And this current president is a traitor to our country, and people should start saying that. That's the real news. This other stuff is not.
Well, the problem is, unfortunately...
Melik, what you have here is to have this Ukrainian ambassador go before this committee and tell them point blank that that was a quid pro quo.
Yep.
You have Mulvaney, who admitted it, then tried to walk it back, lying. You have Donald Trump, who has said there was no quid pro quo, lying, is castigated as whistleblower. Here is a Trump appointee, a guy who's like, I'm not going to prison for you. What do you make of the Ukrainian ambassador who was in on this, who said that also that Rudy Giuliani was there to set up a back channel discussion with the Ukrainians? This is damning information against Donald Trump, Melik. What do you think? Yes or no?
I don't think much of it, simply because about a month or so ago, we heard a similar conversation about Robert Mueller and him testifying and what he was supposed to let us know during the hearing. And, a month or so ago, people were talking about impeaching Donald Trump over that.
This is not, Melik. This isn't Robert Mueller.
Right. This is another bright and shiny object, though.
No. This is the Trump appointee, the actual ambassador.
That doesn't mean anything, the fact that you say Trump appointee.
Stop, wait a minute. Are you telling me that the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. who was in on the phone call, is directly contradicting the chief of staff and the president of the United States, and you say it's no big deal?
Well, I don't think it's not a big deal to me because simply this is something that we've heard before. But if it is,
no, we have not. Donald Trump.
We've
said,
heard before that the walls were about to come tumbling down. We've been here before.
No,
so if as you say, your sources say, you know, this is something that Donald Trump wanted to do because Donald Trump was concerned about it.
See, now you're mixing stories. This is not my sources talking about the Ukrainian ambassador. The Ukrainian ambassador to the United States.
Right, was in a hearing today.
Congress today.
Right.
But
we've had people testify in Congress before about the Mueller investigation, and then, as I said, there were things that the walls were going to come tumbling down.
You're absolutely right.
So what the Democrats should do, and what you should encourage your people out there, and I say everybody out there in the cyberverse, go to your members of Congress and push them for that vote on the impeachment inquiry.
Well,
do that. So you can actually, that's a step that you can take. We don't have to talk about a what ifs or anything like that. Push the Democratic Party.
First of all, we're not discussing what ifs, Kelly. What we're discussing here, hold up. What we're discussing here, Kelly, is the fact that on this day, you have the Ukrainian ambassador stating what he said took place. Now, Mulvaney admitted in front of the press a quid pro quo. Then he tried to walk it back. Donald Trump, his perfect call. In fact, even Mitch McConnell today is acknowledging we got a problem, Kelly.
But to Malik's point, we haven't necessarily been here before specifically because there hasn't been a prima facie case of said treason, frankly. Now we have that, clear-cut, this is grounds for impeachment case. But to Malik's point, if the Democrats are not on the ball with this, it can end up like the Mueller investigation where it's just kind of brushed under the rug, more things that Trump does, and, we just have a president in here for 4 more years because nobody's doing anything about it. So my concern is, like what Malik was saying earlier, like the Mueller report and everybody else who was doing all of these things in the administration, we have proof that Trump has been committing treason. We've had proof for at least 3 years now, and nothing has been happening.
And then
first of all, Rob, there's a huge difference here.
Yeah.
The difference here is this here. Unlike any other thing that happened previously, none of those things precipitated or led to this impeachment inquiry.
But it could have.
This has gone to, first of all, what could have happened is irrelevant because it didn't. I'm speaking of the now.
True.
And what we're dealing with the now is that Trump now, him and his folks realize this is now different. This is a different situation to have the person sitting in the Oval Office telling a foreign entity, I will hold up your money unless you investigate my chief Democratic rival. That's a change. And to have the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. now flat out confirm it, Rob, that has to be troubling to the White House. Yeah,
it should. I think what's different, let's separate some things out here. There is a pattern of the same thing. There's a pattern of betraying this nation. And I think the Mueller report was clear, and there was enough to impeach there. But this is a much easier story to see. I mean, it's really clear cut to your point. And the president occupant of the White House is certainly more worried about it. But look, we have to make sure that people understand what's going on because I think the walls are really close to crumbling in. See, not about, it's one way or another. Are the walls going to crumble in on all of democracy or are they going to crumble on Trump? One or the other is going to come about. And we have to decide as Americans how that's going to go. And I think that's going to be not just on Congress, it's going to be on America. Do we want to elect a king? Do we want to throw out the Constitution? Do we want to throw out the rule of law? That's what we're doing. If we're saying this is okay, if a president can do this, a president can do anything, and there are no rules, and let's throw it out and let's just make him king and say, we don't care about the Constitution anymore. So we can have conservatives stop pretending that they care so much about the Constitution when you see Trump trampling over the Constitution every single day?
Well, you don't have to actually you don't have to compare or say anything about how conservatives feel about the Constitution. Democrats have the House. So if you want to impeach him, and as we were told, there were, I think, 10 different instances that Mueller actually identified where Trump obstructed justice.
And now at 11.
And now we have 11. So if the 10 weren't important enough or weren't a guiding force enough for the Democrats to say, okay, well, we're going to actually move forward and vote on an impeachment inquiry, then I just don't have the confidence that they'll do it now. But if they do, then more power to them. I think this is just yet something else that's going to help Trump win in 2020. But there were 10 instances, where Mueller said that Trump obstructed justice, but now we've moved on to yet another bright and shiny object that Trump gave us. Now, Trump did actually give us
this.
He
violated the law.
Yeah, I mean, Trump actually did give us this. You know, there were things he shouldn't have had the conversations with the Ukraine minister, but if the notion is that, aha, this is the moment where Trump is going to be impeached, okay, well, put your money, put up or shut up. That's what I said.
Well, actually, I kind of agree with that. I'll just say this, but we're making the argument that because you got away with the crime before, you should get away with the next crime. Is that the argument? Like, I think it's a bad argument.
But there were 10 crimes.
Trust me, this ain't R. Kelly. Bottom line here is this here. Democrats moving this direction. Donald Trump suffered a serious blow today to have his Ukrainian ambassador to the United States go before Congress and say, yes, indeed, there was a quid pro quo. Let's see how the Donald tries to wriggle out of this one. All right, folks, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg was grilled yesterday during his testimony on Capitol Hill. The hearing was about Libra, the company's proposed cryptocurrency, but he also commented on the social network's commitment to civil rights and what it has done to promote diversity after the company's settlement with various civil rights groups related to discrimination tied to advertising and housing. Folks, it was some tough testimony and tough questions, especially when you're facing Congresswoman Maxine Waters of California.
It is no secret that Facebook allowed Russia to undermine and divide our country through divisive online ads. The Senate's investigation discovered that African Americans were targeted the most by Russia, specifically in places where Black Lives Matter groups were the most active. Despite all of your technological expertise, Russia and Iran are at it again for the upcoming election. Then last week, you announced a new ad policy that gives politicians a license to lie so you can earn more money off this division, I suppose. Facebook changes the rules when it can benefit itself. Last year, Facebook banned all cryptocurrency ads on its platform because, and I quote, they are frequently associated with misleading or deceptive promotional practices, quote, unquote. Seems fair. Then earlier this year, Facebook rolled back the cryptocurrency ad ban, bought a blockchain company, and announced its own cryptocurrency. So tell us what changed. How did cryptocurrency go from being misleading and deceptive last year and then becomes a means for financial inclusion this year? It seems to me that you shifted your stance because you realized that you can use your size and your users' data to dominate the cryptocurrency market. You change your policy when it benefits you. You reinstated cryptocurrency ads because you had plans to start your own cryptocurrency. So this brings me back to your new policy on political speech. My question to you is, how does this new policy benefit you? Because it seems that a policy that allows politicians to lie, mislead, and deceive would also allow Facebook to sell more ads to those politicians, thus making your company more money. But you can tell me, how does Facebook benefit?
Chairwoman, thanks for those questions. I'd like to address all of the things that you mentioned in there. On elections, you're right that in 2016 we were on our back foot in terms of preventing Russia from attempting to interfere in our elections. We've spent a lot of the last few years building systems that are more sophisticated than any other company has at this point, and frankly a lot of governments too, for defending against foreign interference. This Monday we announced that we had proactively identified network of fake Russian accounts and a few networks of Iranian fake accounts that we proactively took down, which certainly, as you say, signals that these nation states are still attempting to interfere, but I hope will also give us some confidence that our systems are now more sophisticated to proactively identify and address these things. On your question about political ads, look, from a business perspective, the very small percent of our business that is made up of political ads does not come anywhere close to justifying the controversy that this incurs for our company. So this really is not about money. This is, on principle, I believe in giving people a voice. I believe that ads can be an important part of voice. I think especially in the political process for challenger candidates and for local candidates or advocacy groups whose message might not otherwise be covered by the media. Having ads can be an important way to inject your message into the political
Let me interrupt
debate.
you for a minute. Are you telling me, I think as you said to me before, you plan on doing no fact checking on political ads?
Chairwoman, our policy is that we do not fact check politicians' speech, and the reason for that is that we believe that in a democracy, it is important that people can see for themselves what politicians are saying. Political speech is some of the most scrutinized speech already in the world.
Do you fact check on any ads at all?
Yes.
Describe what you fact check on.
Well, Chairwoman, actually, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. Facebook itself actually does not fact check. What we do is we have feedback that people in our community don't want to see viral hoaxes or kind of
So
widespread.
let me be clear. You do no fact checking on any ads. Is that correct?
Chairwoman, what we do is we work with a set of independent fact checkers who...
Somebody fact checks on ads. You contract with someone to do that. Is that right?
Chairwoman, yes.
And tell me, who is it that they fact checked on?
Chairwoman, what we do is when content is getting a lot of distribution and is flagged by members of our community or by our technical systems, it can go into a queue to be reviewed by a set of independent fact checkers. They can't fact check everything, but the things that they get to, and if they mark something as false, then we...
All right, my time has expired, and someone else will continue on this line of questioning.
Am I the only one confused as hell? No, Facebook, we don't fact check as an independent group that fact check who we pay. Man, cut that bullshit out. You fact check. Speaking of getting checked, here's Congresswoman Joyce Beatty of Ohio. Let's just say every black mama know what this was like.
In your opening statement, you talked a lot about civil rights. I think we should probably phrase it a little differently, that you work with civil rights work is because it's a result of the number of lawsuits that you've had. NAACP, even Secretary Ben Carson filed a fair housing lawsuit against you for violations. So let me ask you this. Do you know what redlining is?
Yes.
Okay, then you should have known better. And maybe if you had real diversity or inclusion on your team, somebody in that room would have said what you were doing when you looked at what you were doing in the housing, how you were redlining or using zip codes and to eliminate people from getting information. Now, have you read the report that Laura Murphy sent to you? You've talked a lot about diversity, and you introduced her name about this great study in her work. Have you read it? Do you know what the recommendations were? Do you know when she issued the report? Yes or no?
I've seen the report.
Okay, tell me what the top 3 things were, because I have it right here. What were the top 3 things in her report? Somebody talked about lying in this committee. I'm only saying it.
Well, one of them was around housing ads, which we've talked about. The other was around setting up a civil rights task force.
And who's on the civil rights task force?
Sheryl Sandberg is the person she's...
What's civil rights? Okay, we know Cheryl's not really civil rights, so I'm trying to help you here. She's your COO, and I don't think there's anything, and I know Cheryl well, about civil rights in her background. So come better than that for me, if we're gonna talk civil rights.
It's an internal task force.
Do you know who the firm that you employ for civil rights is?
Congressman, I don't know.
How could you not know when you have employed the most historical, the largest civil rights firm to deal with issues that are major? And this is what's so frustrating to me. It's almost like you think this is a joke when you have ruined the lives of many people, discriminated against them. Do you know what percentage of African Americans are on Facebook in comparison to majority folks? Do you know what the percentages are?
People using the Facebook.
Yes. Do you know what the percentages are for African Americans?
I don't, because we don't collect the races of people.
Well, it came out in a report and in the Pew Research Center that was sent to you. So maybe you just don't read a lot of things that deal with civil rights or African Americans. I have a lot of questions I'm going to send to you that I'm not going to be able to get through, and I would like an answer, because this is appalling and disgusting to me, and I yield back.
When it get funky, this the face you make. Damn! But oh, you know the freshmen, they got to ask questions last. And oh my Lord, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, let's just say she just walked Mark Zuckerberg's behind down.
You announced recently that the official policy of Facebook now allows politicians to pay to spread disinformation in 2020 elections and in the future. So I just want to know how far I can push this in the next year. Under your policy, using census data as well, could I pay to target predominantly Black zip codes and advertise them the incorrect election date?
No, Congresswoman, you couldn't. We have, even for these policies around the newsworthiness of content that politicians say, and the general principle that I believe that.
But you said you're not going to fact check my ads.
We have, if anyone, including a politician, is saying things that can cause, that is calling for violence or could risk imminent physical harm or voter or census suppression when we roll out the census suppression policy, we will take that content down.
So you will. There is some threshold where you will fact check political advertisements. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, Congresswoman, yes, for specific things like that, where there's imminent risk of harm.
Could I run ads targeting Republicans in primaries saying that they voted for the Green New Deal?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Would I be able to run advertisements on Facebook targeting Republicans in primaries saying that they voted for the Green New Deal? I mean, if you're not fact-checking political advertisements, I'm just trying to understand the bounds here. What's fair game?
Congresswoman, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I think
so. You don't know if I'll be able to do that.
I think probably.
Do you see a potential problem here with a complete lack of fact-checking on political advertisements?
Well, Congresswoman, I think lying is bad, and I think if you were to run an ad that had a lie, that would be bad. That's different from it being, in our position, the right thing to do to prevent your constituents or people in an election from seeing that you had lied.
So you won't take down lies, or you will take down lies? I think this is just a pretty simple yes or no.
Congresswoman,
I'm not talking about spin. I'm talking about actual
yes, in most cases, in a democracy, okay. I believe that people should be able to see for themselves what politicians that they may or may not vote for
so
are
you
saying,
won't take
judge
them
their
down.
Character for themselves.
So you won't take. You may flag that it's wrong, but you won't take it down.
Congresswoman, it depends on the context that it shows up. Organic post, ads, right. the treatment is a little
One more question. In your ongoing dinner parties with far-right figures, some of who advance the conspiracy theory that white supremacy is a hoax, did you discuss so-called social media bias against conservatives, and do you believe there is a bias?
Congresswoman, so I don't remember everything that was in the question.
That's all right. I'll move on. Can you explain why you've named the Daily Caller, a publication well documented with ties to white supremacists, as an official fact checker for Facebook?
Congresswoman, sure. We actually don't appoint the independent fact checkers. They go through an independent organization called the Independent Fact Checking Network that has a rigorous standard for who they allow to serve as a fact checker.
So you would say that white supremacist-tied publications meet a rigorous standard for fact-checking? Thank you.
Congresswoman, I would say that we're not the one assessing that standard. The International Fact Checking Network is the one who is setting that standard.
Okay, y'all, why did I play all of that? Because Mark Zuckerberg knows damn well what they're talking about. Okay? Let's be real clear here. All right? Essentially, what he is saying is that if Donald Trump or any other politician has an ad that's flat out false, that is a lie, Facebook is like, all right, we good. We good. Do you understand that television networks and television stations and newspapers and magazines will not allow such false ads? See, Facebook wants to have it both ways. They are the largest disseminator of news in America. But their deal is, oh, no, we're not a news company. We're a tech company. But then another day, we're not a tech company, we're a news company. Then it goes, oh, that's really only a small part of our revenue. Okay, so if it's a small part of your revenue, correct it. This really isn't hard. But the fact of the matter is, Facebook doesn't want to do it. And do you know why? Because they're scared of conservatives. See, let me sit my iPad down. So let me just explain to y'all something. This is the game that conservatives have played since the 1960s. Woe is me, the liberal media. The liberal media hates us. The liberal media doesn't understand us. So what they do is, and they love talking about black people, why you always playing the victim? But they're always playing the victim. It's always the media, the media, the media. Oh my God, the media. They're all against us. You got Fox News who goes, the mainstream media. Hell, they're mainstream. But you see the game. Now you have to ask yourself, how is it you have like the Daily Caller and you've got the National Review and you got OANN, you've got Newsmax, you got all of these conservative websites, the Epoch Times, all these different sites. You know why? Because conservative billionaires are funding them. That's where they're getting their money from. The Rubin Report. Oh, all his YouTube followers. Used to be with the Young Turks, but now he's a conservative. Funded by the Koch brothers. Because their whole deal is the liberal media, liberal media, liberal media. They hit CNN with that. When I was there, they hit CBS. If CNN had gone out and hired, even today, if CNN had goes out and hires 1,000 conservative employees, you know what the conservatives would say? They're still liberal. That's the game. So they attack Facebook. They attack YouTube. I saw some documentary, Dennis Prager, the censorship. Prager University, PragerU, has had more than 2 of their videos, 2 billion views. So where's the censorship? This is a part of their strategy and their game. And so Facebook is scared to death. Why? Because Republicans control the Senate, and they're scared that Donald Trump is going to attack them. Now their problem is that they're getting their ass kicked by the Democrats. And see, all Zuckerberg had to say is, if you want to run ads on Facebook and you're lying, we're not going to run it. Simple as that. Facts are not optional. Facts are not up for debate. But Facebook wants to have it both ways. And that's why they're going to continue to get their behind kicked. And Greg, this is critically important because we know, and this is what I keep trying to walk people through, these low information voters. He says, you know, the public should be able to, speech is so important and the public should be able to hear it. But when you have people who don't know the truth, and then somehow somebody presents it, there's a reason people, I see these tweets, Roland, why are you always interrupting people? Because if you lie on Roland Martin Unfiltered, I'm stopping you. And I'm gonna smack you. Because I can't let somebody watching on YouTube or Facebook or Periscope or watching on Twitter or listening to the audio podcast go, well, Roland didn't say anything. Roland didn't interrupt them, so what they said must be true. No. Facebook is knowingly allowing lies, and that's why Zuckerberg got jacked up, and he should have gotten jacked up.
Absolutely. And his courtesy, chairwoman and congresswoman notwithstanding, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't give a damn about anything but Mark Zuckerberg and his profit bottom line. Mark Zuckerberg went to China and asked Xi Jinping to give his daughter a Chinese name, trying to figure out another way to get into the Chinese market. Failing that, and he then says that China is a champion of censorship and they should be ignored, and we have to be careful here in America and protect free speech, because if we don't, the Chinese will own the internet. These are all scare tactics because he's afraid to lose his market. This man, let's just connect a few dots. Pete Buttigieg says that he thinks that we should have more Supreme Court justices like Anthony Kennedy.
Come on, sir.
Anthony Kennedy is the author of Citizens United. Citizens United is the terrible Supreme Court decision that basically said you can say whatever the hell you want if you're a corporation and spend as much money as you want to say it. Who suggested hires for Pete Buttigieg's campaign? Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg and his wife. Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg does not care. You've laid all this out. This man is about making money. And if that means taking dirty money from wherever, then I'm going to do it. And finally, if he says, well, you know, this really isn't a bigger part of our bottom line, these ads, it isn't about the amount of bottom line the political ads are paying. It's about the brand of Facebook saying this is the Wild West, and if you give us our money, we'll do whatever we want. He talked to those congresswomen with the type of arrogant, white frat boy, Harvard-bred, I don't give a damn about y'all arrogance that you see shooting through everybody from Brett Kavanaugh to Donald Trump Jr. Yeah. This man don't give a damn as long as he get his money, Roland.
That's it. That's it.
Erica?
Listen, and I'm over here amening Greg because this is what's consequential. If people do not believe that this matters for the argument of that, oh, I just go on Facebook to laugh or it does not have any bearing on me, listen to me, bullshit. Because it is very much so a media firm. It is very much so influential. Facebook also owns Instagram and WhatsApp. It is a communications company, everybody. And when I'm reading reports that are already saying that memes are going to be a factor in this next presidential election, we have state elections that are going to be happening in the next couple of weeks. In the general election, an election where you already have a person that is occupying 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, a freaking terrorist who has sold America and is continuing to sell democracy to the highest bidder. If you do not believe that what you see and what you hear and not having the nuance to be able to understand what is true and what's not, what is factual does not have an impact on you or does not have an impact on your audience or the community at large, you are living foul. It absolutely does. And so that is why it is most important, not only for us to be able to dissect these hearings, but to also understand that what is being flashed before your eyes is not all for your good, and that there has to be some level of pushback, which is what these members of the House Financial Services Committee were doing, taking Facebook to task, but also letting the audience know that, listen, that they have opened floodgates that really cannot be closed so easily.
That's right. That's right.
Let me also say this for the people who are watching. And again, I'm going to sit my iPad down again. Okay, so let me walk through this. And y'all are going to hear a lot more of this over the next year, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I did a video called Black Media, Black-Owned Media being the tip of the spear. What that means is that when you are in a battle, you're the tip of the spear that connects with the skin, but somebody got to push that thing in. in order to take your opponent out. Black-owned media is the tip of the spear. So everybody is focusing on the lying ads. But it was Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, who's the subcommittee chair on diversity and inclusion, who hit him on the issue of pension funds, lawyers, law firms, accounting firms. See, let me explain something to y'all, and trust me, I'm gonna unpack this thing because I'm actually working on this thing right now. And in fact, my speech tonight to the Minneapolis, the Twin Cities Urban League, they want me to talk about unity. But I'm gonna give y'all a preview of my speech.
All right.
We can't talk about unity until we deal with money.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on. Come on.
See, when she hit him on that, what y'all gotta understand is that black folks have been locked out of getting those dollars. See, there are a whole bunch of y'all out there always trashing Reverend Jackson. But Reverend Jackson was the one who was talking about pension funds or black folks being able to manage those dollars.
Yeah, so is
When he was going after Silicon Valley companies, Verizon and others, he talked about the billions in bond offerings they were putting up. And he was asking, where are the black law firms? Where are the black accounting firms? Where are the black bond firms?
Yeah.
Do y'all know that right now the federal government has a $1 trillion plus pension fund? And do y'all know that BlackRock controls more than half of the total pension fund in America?
George Bush and company.
Matter of fact, let me further unpack this. In fact, BlackRock wrote the regulations where they were really the only firm eligible to be able to control the dollars. Now let me unpack a little bit more. If you had to determine what is the greatest collection of black wealth, I say collection, the greatest collection of black wealth in America are black public workers. I need y'all to hear what I'm saying. That means all these black folks who have worked for the federal government, who work for state governments, county governments, city governments, school districts, water districts. That's public pension funds. So the greatest collection of black wealth in America resides with public workers. Do y'all know of the $1 trillion in federal public pension funds that black people only manage 100 million? That's right, 100 million of 1 trillion. We can go, that's the federal government. We ain't even talking about each one of the states and the billions in pension funds. That's that industry. Same thing when you talk about the advertising industry. Who are the black creative directors? Who are the black ad agencies? Are they getting a piece of this pie? No, they're being controlled by these international conglomerates. What I'm laying out to you is that those questions by Congresswoman Joyce Beatty was getting to the heart of the issue of how do you break down the barriers when it comes to income inequality and wealth building when we're being locked out. I can tell y'all for a fact, I know it because I was sitting in the lunchroom in the Department of Treasury in 2010 when I was told that black and other minority firms outperform white firms on the management of TARP funds. And I said, are they gonna get more money? And everybody went quiet. So when everybody is focusing on the ads, which are critically important, we're gonna be focusing on what Congresswoman Joyce Beatty said. And we're gonna have her on this show. And we're gonna talk about this because, folks, I keep telling y'all, there's only one federal agency that shares along with the White House. It's the White House and the Department of Treasury. They can play flag football or kickball on the lawn. I'm saying all of this, folks, because you better follow the money. And they're trying to hold Facebook accountable by saying, where the money? Why is it Facebook is funding all of these news shows and not one of them black? Oh yes, Jada has Red Table Talk. That's not a news show. But I'm talking about they're funding a CNN show, a Fox News show, a Univision show. They're funding a whole bunch of shows, none of them black. And when he said we don't collect data, Facebook knows that black people over-index on their platform. We over-index on Twitter. We over-index on Instagram. Yet we don't own any of these platforms. And are those platforms and those companies making sure that black firms are getting dollars? I'll be unpacking this further on days ahead. Don't think for a second that we're done. All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, in a few weeks, we're going to be in Cabo for the second annual Luxe Jazz experience. Gerald Albright's going to be one of the performers there. 14 different acts performing over 3 days. If you want to attend, go to luxejazz.com, LIFELUXEJAZZ.com. But if you cannot make it, but if you want to check it all out, there's a live streaming pass courtesy of GFNTV.com. That's GFNTV.com. Guys, let's put the website below me. And that is, of course, concerts over 3 days. 14 acts. Of course, Mark Curry, the comedian, is one of the folks who is confirmed for this event. In addition to Mark Curry, it's going to be great concerts by, again, Gerald Albright, Alex Bougnong, Raul Madan, Incognito, Pieces of a Dream, Kirk Whalum, Average White Band, Donnie McClurkin, Shalea, Roy Ayers, Tom Brown, Ronnie Laws, and Ernest Quarles. I'll be doing Roland Martin Unfiltered that Thursday and Friday from Cabo. Looking forward to it. But again, if you want to watch the live stream, go to GFNTV.com. That's GFNTV.com. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. That brings us to the tragic case of Auntie Jefferson. Of course, the one black woman who was shot and killed by a former Fort Worth police officer as she played video games with her nephew. In cities around the country, they're planning a day of outrage next week to protest her killing inside of her own home. Joining me right now to talk about this is Tamika Mallory. Of course, she's a longtime co-president of the Women's March and civil rights attorney Lee Merritt. First off, Tamika, why is this day important? Why this day of outrage on behalf of Auntie Jefferson?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, and I apologize for the noise in the background. I'm getting ready to run to a panel at the Revolt Summit. I think the day of outrage is important because people expect us to sort of go on to business as usual. You know, the killing of a black man or woman has become so normal to America that, you know, we only focus on it for a short period of time. And when you have something, you know, when you have an arrest, as you had with Officer Dean or former Officer Dean, the man who murdered Tatiana, what happens with an arrest and him being charged is that people feel like there's some form of justice and they don't necessarily need to pay attention. But that couldn't be further than from the truth. We know, Roland, from being in this, obviously you longer than me, but me for 25 years, that the idea of justice is something that is a long struggle. It's something that we have to keep our eyes on the prize and be consistent and committed to for the long haul, because the system constantly rejects the idea of justice when it comes to black people, but particularly black women. And that is the larger point here. Even when fighting the case there in Fort Worth, which we're going to say and be a part of. But when we think about when Black women are killed by police officers or killed in any type of violent situation, this country does not treat it in the same way with the same type of outrage as we have with our fallen brothers like Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin and even young Tamir Rice, and the list goes on and on. We don't have the same amount of uprising. With Sandra Bland, we did, even though that situation was, really one that really hurt our people and hurt folks in general. And we believe that the justice in Sandra Bland's situation still has never really been realized. But we did not see a major uprising in the way that it should be. So for our Tatiana Jefferson, we're not going to let that happen for her and for all the other women who've been killed, particularly at the hands of police brutality and police abuse. We will stand up and stand firm for a Tatiana on Monday. And we're asking everyone, go to Until Freedom, that's UNTIL Freedom, on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever all social media platforms, and get the information that you need about where to connect with someone in your city. And it's not too late. If there's not a city that you can connect with, you can organize your own rally, 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, all across the country. Over 25 cities have signed up.
All right, Tamika Merrill, I know you have to go to your panel. We surely appreciate you joining us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me, Roland.
I want to go to Lee Merritt now. Lee, first of all, we know there was some drama there in Fort Worth when it came to the burial of Tatiana Jefferson. Did everything go smoothly with her funeral?
It did. It was a beautiful service, and the family was able to come together. And I think it highlights the importance of this day of outrage, is really to refocus the community on the common enemy, which is the system that is rampant with brutality and lack of accountability. And a lot of people were deeply engaged in this case until the family drama began to play out in the public, and a lot of people began to drift away. It is important that we take this moment and do what we can to change the culture of policing.
This day of outrage, how does the family feel about the focus on the death of Tatiana Jefferson with these events?
Well, the family is, and I can say both sides, because we know that this is a family that has expressed sort of different views on some personal things, but both sides of the family are deeply committed to accountability, not only for this police officer, but accountability for the city of Fort Worth, the Fort Worth PD, and they realize that it exists in a greater conversation throughout the nation, that they are now, as is often said, a part of a fraternity or on an association with folks all around the country, a group that no one has ever asked to be a part of, but who have lost loved ones to police brutality, that 1,100 people a year who suffer from the loss of a loved one as a result of brutality, making our country one of the deadliest for police brutality in the modern world. So Tatiana's family are focused, and they're hoping that the world will be focused on a just outcome in this case and a change in policing in general.
All right. Well, Lee Merritt, we really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to our panel here. I want to start with you, CJ. And we talk about this day of outrage. But this case speaks to horrible training. It speaks to bad policing. And I think such days are important because we have to question exactly what is happening with these cops. There is no reason this woman should have been shot and killed in her own home with cops and essentially sneaking around her home, not even identifying themselves.
Well, I think it is a tragic situation that took place. I think there needs to be more police accountability around training, but it's also in a tough spot as well. You know, I do have members of my family that served, and it's that unknown factor when you go into a situation. You don't have the details, you don't have information, and you know you're running on adrenaline, hoping that okay, it's them, not me. So I'm hoping that Congress, as well as the governor of the state of Texas, really come in and have a serious conversation, ask for some data, the police chief down there, she's a wonderful woman. And I think if everybody comes together, not just the community, but law enforcement and our elected officials, I think they can get some proper answers.
This is, Dr. Carter, something that's critically important, that anytime these happen, police departments across the country should be assessing their strategy in terms of what is going on with training in these departments.
Absolutely. And I think in this particular case, I think the thing that causes most people dismay is not whether these officers should have been concerned, because the neighbor called a non-emergency number and called in a wellness check. And I have family who are police officers, past and present. Several members of my family are police officers. And the thing is, when you have a non-emergent situation and you have them approach the home the way they did, as we could see from the police cam, right, from their own body cam footage, they didn't announce themselves, they didn't knock on the door, they were going around her house in the dark at that time of morning. The neighbor called in the non-emergency number, I think precisely because he did not want them to come to the house with guns blazing. If he thought it was an emergent issue, he probably would have dialed 911. And he's even expressed as much. And so I think this idea that police get a pass because they took a dangerous job, they volunteered for a dangerous job, and therefore get a pass to shoot anyone who looks suspicious or may be dangerous is a problem, especially in a place like Texas, where most people have guns in their homes, or lots of people have guns in their homes. I can't say most. And it's expected. And she was in her home. I probably would have thought that there was an intruder or someone skulking around my house at that time of morning when I can just see lights. And nobody's announced themselves. Right. No one has come to my front door. No one has even tried to say from the curb, excuse me, can you come out of the house? Or is everyone okay? Nothing. And so I think in this particular case, trying to hide behind, oh, we might be afraid, or our training tells us that if we feel afraid, shoot first and ask questions later, is a problem. Now, I do agree that this is a time actually for law enforcement communities to not be defensive and start really taking stock of what they teach. And one of the things I don't think they do an effective enough job is teaching de-escalation. That gun should not be your first resort.
Michael Brown, that is, I think, again, what should be happening, a constant assessment where police chiefs are reminding folks how they should behave. But unfortunately, we see this. Again, this woman is dead. Her nephew is traumatized. And every time police say, you know what, well, you know, this was a mistake. Yeah, this cop, no matter what happens to him, he's still living.
And we had a lot of these discussions when I was in office, and with the police, and it's a very challenging discussion because as elected officials, no matter what jurisdiction you're in, you never want to show that you're not being supportive of the police. And so that's one challenge. The second challenge is, until the standard is changed in the law, it's going to be very difficult to stop these kind of things from happening. I'm not suggesting police officers are thinking about, oh, I can shoot anybody and it won't matter because all I have to do is claim that I was in danger. But there has to be some different level of consciousness when they're in that situation where they maybe, as Dr. Carter mentioned, won't use their gun as their first line of defense. And that's going to continue to happen until the standard changes.
Deontay, and that is what I think is important. And unfortunately, you have police unions who are blocking a lot of this. And look, you have a Department of Justice that also does not want to hold police accountable, that wants to pull back from consent decrees, that is not being aggressive at prosecuting police officers.
You know, Roland, I don't think it's necessarily that the Department of Justice doesn't want to hold the police accountable, but I think we have to remember that the Department of Justice still has a duty to make sure that our law enforcement system in America is still taken seriously. And so, but
wait a minute, but they're not. Hold up. I got to stop you there. Jeff Sessions, one of the first things that he did when he came as Attorney General was try to withdraw from the consent decree in Baltimore. They tried to withdraw from the consent decree in Chicago. He actually gave a speech where he said, we will pull back from these consent decrees because it was hurting the morale of police officers. Barr followed him up by also reiterating the exact same thing. So the Department of Justice has actually done exactly that. They have been unwilling to hold police accountable because they want to be cozy with cops. Those are facts.
I mean, it's not necessarily being cozy with cops. It's necessarily making sure that they remain leaders in our community and making sure that people realize that the cops still have a job to do. Now, yes, there does need to be a reform.
But DOJ isn't.
There does need to be reform when it comes to our police officers, making sure there's proper training, making sure that seems like earlier does not happen, but we still have to, like I said, make sure that we know that the police are the leaders in the community. Yes, there are bad apples, but we still have to make sure that they keep that same presence in the community.
No, I will say this here. The police are not the leaders in the community. The leaders in the community are the elected officials and the police commissioner or the police chief who's over them. But again, until you have accountability, these cops will continue doing what they're doing. And unfortunately, there are too many excuses coming out of Washington and not having proper oversight of these police departments. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. You can make this possible. All right, folks, today in South Carolina was the 2019 Second Step Presidential Justice Forum. Well, the top 10 Democratic candidates were there, as well as Donald Trump, who delivered the keynote address. It took place at Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. This has been going on for quite some time. And so here is an excerpt of what was said today.
And I'm very proud of being involved with criminal justice reform and getting it done, getting it passed. And we had a lot of votes that normally wouldn't have gone that way. And they really, they were pushing me, some of them, at the end. And we have some of the folks here, Tim Scott, Lindsay, they're here, but I'm going to introduce them in a little while. But we had tremendous help. This was a bipartisan bill. We had a lot of support on both sides. And people that you would have least suspected really helped us a lot. So they've been trying to get this passed for many, many years. But to everyone at the 2020 Bipartisan Justice Center, it's my great privilege to speak with you today and my true honor to receive the Bipartisan Justice Award. I am very, very grateful for that, and it will be at a very high level in the Oval Office, a place called the Oval Office. Have you heard about that? It'll be right in the Oval Office with me. I'm very proud of it. Thank you. I also want to thank...
Yeah, I think we've heard of the Oval Office. Dr. Carter, I want to start with you. Donald Trump wants to ride this whole issue of criminal justice reform, but the reality is this was a very much stripped down bill than the one that was actually sought by Democrats. That was first. Folks like Jeff Sessions, folks like Senator Tom Cotton, and others fought it in a significant way. And so what do you make of Trump holding himself up as this major leader when it comes to criminal justice reform?
Well, I actually don't think it's just him doing it. I think he's gotten a lot of credit from a lot of corners for the First Step Act. And even though it's like you said, a stripped down bill, it doesn't address any of the sort of more significant reforms that people have been talking about in terms of sentencing, but also even thinking about police contact, right, that lead many people to have these contacts with the criminal justice system. I mean, it is something. And I know that might feel you know, unsatisfying for many people, but it is something, right? It is getting in the right direction. And anytime you can get Congress to agree on something, I think that is a positive thing. Now, what this is going to mean for him in terms of the next election, I don't know it'll mean much, but he's going to say what he needed to say, and particularly to that audience. I think the fact that he was at a bipartisan center made it more likely that he kept his comments probably more tame than we've seen from him in recent weeks. I mean, it was a good way to sort of say, you know, hey, I did something, and take our mind off what is currently happening with these impeachment inquiries and, you know, the Republican hijinks of earlier this week. So, I mean, I think it's one of those moments, right, that he can claim, and I think most people are willing to let him have it.
Michael, the reality is when you talk about it was called the First Step Act, which means will there be a second step? Will there be a third step? Or will this be as far as Trump and the Republicans go when it comes to true criminal justice reform?
I know Dr. Carter just mentioned it, and Roland, you know where I am on this because we've had this discussion. And I guess we can appreciate the First Step Act, even if it was stripped down, and you got to start somewhere. But until you tackle the issue related to sentencing reform and giving these judges, remember, life-appointed judges, at least on the federal side, actual power to make a decision when they see a file in front of them. If somebody, for example, has a small bag of weed or a small bag of something, and they get sentenced to 10 years, the judge should be able, in a sentencing guidelines, a judge should be able to say, you know what, it doesn't make any sense on this one, but if I see you back in the courtroom, then you're going to have some problems. Give the judges some discretion. They're there for lifetime appointments. They clearly have credentials to understand what the law is and then to look at a situation. Now, they get the file, and they have to adjust relative to what the guidelines say. And until that is fixed, yes, First Step is important, but we got a long, long way to go. In the sentencing reform, that's where the battles will happen. Because obviously for the hawks, obviously related to the hawks for criminal justice who like sending people to prison, they're going to fight it. And clearly other communities are not.
Deontay, criminal justice reform is a very broad category. And so Trump talks about getting the credit for the First Step Act. But this is also the exact same administration that said we're going to go back to using private federal prisons. This is the exact same administration where Jeff Sessions, followed by Barr, said they were rescinding the order of Attorney General Eric Holder, where he said that U.S. attorneys did not have to prosecute people to the highest level, to have far more discretion, that they would actually could advance in their careers without having to say, I got the most years in prison. They also, again, rescinded that. And so when you begin to look at this whole issue of criminal justice reform, you have the First Step Act, which was positive, but there are some things that Trump and his administration has done that have been negative, that have actually done nothing. Because if on one hand, if you're talking about how do we address folks who are being sent to prison, but on the other hand, you say it's okay to prosecute folks at the highest level versus using proper judgment, you're actually doing both things, and you can't act as if it's not happening.
Roland, let me start off by correcting you. The president has not taken full responsibility of the criminal justice reform. If you played a part of the speech where he goes through a long list of people, thanking them for their part that they have played in criminal justice reform, but he also talks about Jared Kushner and how Jared Kushner came to his office and pretty much begged for this to be done, and how Jared Kushner and Jaron Smith played a major part in this. That's the part that we have to understand. But the next thing is it's bipartisan.
Deontay, hold up. Deontay, that was this speech. Hold up, Deontay, 1 second. That was this speech. Donald Trump has before said numerous times, I got it done when nobody else could get it done. So he has taken credit. So, yes, he mentioned all the other different people. Yes, I'm fully aware of the role Jared Kushner played. I met with Jared Kushner at the White House while this thing was going, when it was in the House before it even got to the Senate. But Donald Trump has taken credit for it. The point I'm making here, though, is that the First Step Act is a piece of criminal justice reform. There have been actions taken by Trump's Department of Justice that actually are going to advance mass incarceration.
So you said a piece, hence first step. When you have 3 steps in something, the first step is the first step. So it means there actually are more to come.
Are there 3 steps?
There's more to come. We're at the second step now.
When? Where is it?
This is the second step. We have.
Where is it?
The hiring process. We have the second step. Hiring has been something that that was the name of the event today. Was the second step. Bipartisan form, and so there are more steps. That's why we named it the first step.
No, that's the form. Where's the bill? Okay, the second step. Whose bill is that?
The bill will be going to Congress, but we have to, obviously it has to be prepared.
When? No. Whose bill is it? No. You said there were 3 steps.
There's a second step that is being prepared.
Where's
in
the
White
second
House.
one?
There's a second step that is being prepared in the White House.
It's being prepared?
Yes. The first step just got passed.
No, it didn't just get passed.
So
So what are we waiting on?
You know how government works. You know how government works. You can't pass 3 steps in 1 year.
But if you want to hold yourself up as being the one who got it done, I'm saying, where's the second step?
What
You
was
said
the
there were
first
3.
step in
I'm still
Obama's
waiting.
administration?
I was wondering where that would come.
What was the first step in Obama's administration?
The first step of the Obama administration was to actually do a review of the people who are actually
So they
in
reviewed
prison
for 8 years.
Create 1 second, I'm not done. And create a real process to actually release folks from prison, shorten those sentences. That's actually what was happening. That's 1. 2, Obama became the first president to literally visit a federal prison. 3, Eric Holder, changing the guidelines, telling U.S. attorneys you do not have to prosecute people at the highest level. 4, stopping the funding, the use of federal prisons. Do you want me to go on?
Roland, you can continue to take away from the...
And
the 4 people...
Let me also remind you. Deontay, let me ask you a question. Why did criminal justice reform under Obama, who blocked it?
The Republicans blocked it.
Oh, so don't ask the question, what did Obama do, if you don't own up to your party blocking criminal justice reform?
So who's blocking the second step now?
There's no presentation of it. Let me also remind you, the bill that was passed in the House was a weak version. When it went to the Senate, it was folks like Senator Dick Durbin and Senator Cory Booker and Senator Kamala Harris who made it clear that bill is dead on the arrival unless it was actually enforced. And luckily, you had Senator Chuck Grassley who also told Donald Trump, hey, this bill is weak, so it was strengthened. So don't question what did Obama do on it when Republicans were blocking it.
Roland, you
what
can
I'm
continue to take away. You can continue to take away from the 4 blacks that were speaking today to thank the president on the help that they've received with the first step. That you can continue to take away from it, but at the end of the day, it happened. There's more to happen, and
I'm not taking away from that.
Because right now you're taking.
What are you talking about?
Right
I'm
now,
not taking away from that.
You're taking away from it.
No,
you're taking away from it. You're saying where's the rest?
I'm speaking authoritatively about what is also happening by the Trump Department of Justice that is playing a role.
Your purpose of it is to make light of the First Step Act.
But I guess you deny that.
Your purpose of making light of your purpose is to make light of the First Step Act, correct?
No. You're wrong.
That's your purpose.
My purpose is no.
Anytime
nice
you go negative, your purpose is to make light of the First Step Act instead of saying we came together.
No, Deontay. Now, see, this is the difference between me and you. If we're going to discuss criminal justice reform, I'm not talking about one thing. I'm talking about multiple areas. And what I'm saying is, if the Trump administration wants to do criminal justice reform, reverse the use of private federal prisons. Reverse Jeff Sessions' decision when it came to telling the U.S. attorneys prosecute at the highest level. Reverse the decision when it comes to what they're doing, pulling back from dissent decrees. Reverse those decisions, but don't say over here, hey, look what I've done, that's great, but over here, I'm contributing to mass incarceration.
Roland, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Oh, here we go. Okay. CJ, what's your thoughts?
Well, first, I mean, if I was the president and I passed it, hell yeah, I'd brag all day long, all the way to Mississippi and back, and to California and to Canada. So he deserves credit for it. No other president did it. Let it be. And have patience. I mean, there are a lot of people who at the table, whether it's Noble, FOP, the Urban League, NAACP, everybody's going to have various different degrees on what criminal justice should be. And it's about the sausage is going to be grind. And we're now at second chance hiring. Is there a bill around second chance? No. But what the president did do, harness the bully pulpit of the White House, the Oval Office, to bring corporate America together to talk about second chance hiring. Now, is there some stuff that's going to happen in a couple of days down the road? Sure. We just, it's like show me. He's about to show you what his next step is going to be. And when he comes, we'll come back and we'll discuss it.
Also, don't forget, Deontay, when you question what Obama did, didn't he sign the Fair Sentencing Act, which actually reduce the whole issue of crack and powder cocaine? That
Did he
Fair
pass the
Sentencing Act played
legislation
a
to get
huge
to,
role.
did he pass anything on criminal justice reform legislated?
Not, but we'll let Roland continue to have
He
those
couldn't
points.
pass it because your party was blocking it. See, here's the deal here that y'all for some reason don't want to own up to. Democrats had no issue working with Republicans on criminal justice reform under Obama.
Oh, just like Clinton did in
Democrats had no
1994,
problem working with criminal
Democrats
justice
did that
reform
too.
under Trump. The problem with under Obama was that Republicans wouldn't work with Democrats on criminal justice reform because they didn't want to give Obama a win. At some point, y'all got to at least own up to the
didn't understand
reality that your
bipartisanship.
party, in 8 years, your party blocked criminal justice reform.
Well, no, we didn't, and all the black folks and Hispanics got locked up.
Dr. Carter, I'm sorry.
In 94.
Are we living in an alternate universe? Niambe?
I mean, I think this is a conversation that'll go nowhere, right? You all will never agree, but I will say this. Look, Black and brown communities have been over-policed for a very long time, and that's regardless of who has been in the Oval Office. And to the extent that any of these things can happen, I mean, what the federal government can do is some part of this. I really think if we were talking about real criminal justice reform, we should look at local levels. Because some of these things that we are talking about hiring, for example, ban the box legislation has been appearing in cities around the country. I mean, this thing indemnifying employers so they will hire nonviolent, formerly incarcerated persons has been going around for years. So none of these things are novel or new. And I think anybody who's been hanging around the criminal justice space for a very long time has been talking about these things for a really long time. So none of this is rocket science. None of this is new. And none of these are things, in fact, that this president or any other president should get full credit for, because you really had pioneers at stake in local levels, formerly incarcerated persons, non-governmental organizations, all kinds of folks who've been talking about this stuff for a long time and giving people real common sense things that could be bipartisan, right? They just get papered over because we like the politics of it all, right? And not thinking about the fact that these are real people's real lives. And so anything that we can do to lessen the burden on some of our most vulnerable citizens are always things that should not be political.
Well, again, if people want to be serious about this, let's do it. But Michael made the most important point there, and that is, and let's be clear, in the First Step Act, Republicans fought sentencing reform. That was one of the biggest issues. And so let's see what actually takes place. All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, of course, the holiday season is near, and that's the favorite time of the year for many of us. And folks, whether you celebrate Thanksgiving, Ramadan, Christmas, Kwanzaa, or New Year's, this is when you think about spending time with the people you love most. This is also the time to count your blessings and support those less fortunate and look at how you can have an impact on their lives. Well, I have the perfect opportunity for you to be a holiday hero and have a major impact on other families. Here's the deal. Right now, hundreds of thousands of Americans are sitting in jail without being convicted of a crime. Why? Because they lack the financial resources to pay their bail. Think about it. If you are arrested for any minor offense, you will be taken directly to jail. If you don't have bail money, whether it's a few hundred or a few $1,000s, you will stay there until a court date is scheduled. That could be days, weeks, or even months. America's bail system is broken and has created a two-tier system of justice, one for the rich and another for the poor. Freedom should be free. That's why the Ebony Foundation has partnered with the Bail Project and is sponsoring the Home by the Holiday campaign. With your help, our goal is to bail out 1,000 people by New Year's Day. Now, how's that for a holiday gift? A donation from you today can change someone's life tomorrow. Here's why it is critical. People of color represent 50 to 90% of the jail population across the country. Now, folks, when they stayed in jail, 90% of the people with misdemeanors ended up pleading guilty. However, when bail was paid, 50% of the cases were dismissed, and less than 2% received an actual jail sentence. Sometimes justice just needs us. To join this fight, you can become a holiday hero by donating $25, $50, or even more to help the Ebony Foundation bring our brothers and sisters home by the holidays. To donate, go to homebytheholiday.com. That's homebytheholiday.com. About 2 dozen House Republicans stormed a closed-door deposition today in a secure area to complain about the Democratic-led impeachment inquiry. Here they are explaining why they acted like thugs.
I'm gathered here with dozens of my congressional colleagues underground in the basement of the Capitol, because if behind those doors they intend to overturn the results of an American presidential election, we want to know what's going on. What is Adam Schiff trying to hide? I think that's a question so many people have, so many of my colleagues have, so many people in the press should have, is through those hidden closed doors over there, Adam Schiff is trying to impeach a president of the United States. We're going to go and see if we can get inside. So let's see if we can get in.
This was a political stunt. The conservative lawmakers, led by Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida, barged into the deposition and demanded they be allowed to see the closed-door proceedings where members of 3 committees plan to interview Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary Laura Cooper as part of the impeachment probe into Donald Trump. Lots of arguing, bickering back and forth, Democrats shouting at Republicans. And one Republican lawmaker actually recorded what took place in that room, even though recording devices are not allowed in that room, and then posted it on social media. Let's go to our panel. Long Victoria Burke, NNPA, also Mustafa Santiago Ali, Vice President, Environmental Justice and Climate and Community Revitalization, the National Wildlife Federation, Dr. Cleo Monago, political analyst. Lauren, I'll start with you. You, of course, cover Capitol Hill. The games Republicans are playing here are clear. They're trying to scuttle these significant witnesses. Yesterday, Donald Trump tried to distract us by throwing out lynching in one of his tweets. We didn't take the bait. And now, of course, you have these shenanigans today. At the end of the day, what they do not like is the fact that there are Republicans who are testifying, who are not trying to fall on their sword for Donald Trump because they're not trying to go to jail.
Right, and likely what was going on here is, of course, Laura Cooper had something to say that was extremely damaging to the President of the United States. And as you saw, Matt Gaetz and the rest of these people decided to do something that, interestingly enough, is not against the law for these members. Of course, Congress exempts itself from most laws anyway. It's against a oath that the members take when they go into a SCIF, which is a secure area. So there's not a whole lot of recourse that Speaker Pelosi can undertake. I believe she was at her brother's funeral today, so I think she was not there. Interestingly enough, they were going to do this last week, and their plan to do it last week was delayed by the death of Elijah Cummings that happened on the day that they were going to do this. Anyway, obviously a stunt, obviously something that they want to divert. I mean, their whole PR game is always about deflection. It is always about changing the topic. And so when you look at the footage from this of people, same usual suspects, Mo Brooks, Louis Gohmert, Andy Biggs, these are the biggest protectors of the president. These are the people who are probably hearing from their constituents that this is the greatest thing in the world. And so they'll continue to do this. Their problem is going to be at some point, it's not just going to be the sergeant at arms that has to come into the room and tell, or Val Demings, Congresswoman Demings, who was a police chief in Florida, telling them that they're crazy to get out. At some point, they are going to be violating the law, because they will be obstructing the investigation of the House. But their little stunt today, which of course was, I'm sure, well thought out. They thought about what the ramifications were. They knew that it was a relatively minor violation of House rules. Benny Thompson, who's the chair of Homeland Security, already sent out a letter saying that there needs to be a reminder to members about security, but I don't think it's a violation of law. But I would, of course, no one is going to put it past these people to violate the law in the process of this investigation.
It's not an issue, Mustafa, necessarily violating the law. The problem here is that what you're dealing with Republicans is that they do not want people to actually know what took place. Yesterday, you had the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States, the U.S. ambassador to the Ukraine, who testified there was indeed a quid pro quo. Republicans on the Senate side were running away from cameras, not wanting to address this issue. Now, of course, you have the State Department official who has refused to follow the Trump administration. They, of course, told them, hey, do you ignore subpoenas? These folks are saying, damn that, I'm not going to sit there and get my behind ringer for this guy who's going to throw me under the bus anyway. And Republicans do not want the American people to actually know what happened because they are scared. Donald Trump is scared. You look at his tweets, they know he screwed up. Mick Mulvaney went out there in front of the cameras and admitted a quid pro quo, then tried to walk it back. Nah, player, too late. And this is what these cats don't like.
Right. The Republicans are shook. There's no other way to kind of say it, because they know. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of folks who are standing up, doing the right thing, and testifying. And as they continue to testify, as they continue to put a spotlight on these injustices that the administration has done, that the president has done, then they know that the American folks are going to start to pay more attention. And then that is going to lead more people to get behind the impeachment drive that's going on. So there is a process that's going on. And, you know, they're finding themselves in an extremely difficult position. And they're going to be held accountable also for not doing the right thing and helping the American people to see the fullness of what truly has gone on.
Cleo, it's fairly laughable to see Republicans falling over themselves, doing their best not to try to scuttle what's going on, because they know this guy has screwed up. They know the BS. We had to deal with Devin Nunes and all of his drama, what Gates and all these fools are doing, and then you got Senator Tim Scott and Senator Lindsey Graham trying to say, oh, yeah, this is a witch hunt or whatever. I mean, they will cover up anything this guy does in order to hold on to power. No morals, no values, no ethics.
Well, what we are witnessing is desperation. I mean, they hope, I think, that Trump will not do nothing else problematic. He continues to do something else problematic. That's why the Republican Party right now is splintered between people who are on his side, as you mentioned, not wanting to fall on the sword for him anymore. So I'm just wondering how it's going to all turn out. And I don't mean just the impeachment process, but what are American citizens going to do? What are Republicans going to do when they have this desperate, dysfunctional mess and this person who's breaking laws and doing what's essentially treason? I want to know what the public's going to do, because there's still people in Trump's corner. He even has people who qualify as black saying that he's a wonderful person and support him. So what's going to be interesting to me is to see how this all falls out, because they're desperate. And they caved in there and broke some minor laws to distract. But as we all know, ultimately it's not going to work. The distractions are not going to continue to work. Somehow they're going to have to face the music. And then what's going to happen with Republicans? What are they going to do? That's what I want to know. And I want to also, I can't wait to find out when the presidential candidacy, when the run occurs, because are we going to vote for Warren, who's at the top of the list, supposedly, a woman, a white woman, or for Trump?
First of all, we're a long way from even voting. Bottom line here is what they're scared of. They are scared of actual testimony where individuals are corroborating, and then what they're afraid of is this other guy who committing perjury and lying in his testimony. And so it's real interesting to see what happens. They're going to keep playing games, but the bottom line is, as Mustafa said, they are shook.
Well, their fear is about to get realized, because there's going to be a vote in the House and there's going to be an impeachment trial in the Senate. So, I mean, I don't, this idea that they're going to block something, they're not in the majority. Actually, I think what they're doing is they will have more votes on the Democratic side with this nonsense.
Which is why they're desperate and why they're
And the testimony and what they're afraid of. They're afraid of the testimony being actually revealed and people actually hearing what folks are saying. And then it's like, okay, do you want to lie? Or do you want to tell the truth? And that's what we're actually going to see.
Then
our
you have to
go to the
defend
Supreme Court case. Well, that's my point. We know he's going to lie. So, I mean, he'll lie about a lie about a lie. And that's what Donald Trump, all he does. That's why I would say hashtag Trump lies. All right, our last story here is crazy. Marlon Hill, a security guard at Madison West High School in Madison, Wisconsin, was fired because of his use of the N-word. He says he used the N-word while asking a student to stop using the word against him. Here's Hill explaining what the heck happened.
I made a conscious decision to address the word because it is an epidemic. Our kids use it just every day. You have no tolerance for a word, but yet you allow a student to call me that word over 15 times without correcting that behavior. My father was called this word. My grandmother, my grandfather, and keep going on down the family line. We were all called this word, and not one of them could say, don't call me that. I can. And I shouldn't be punished because I have the right to tell somebody not to call me this word.
Hiller's getting a lot of support, and in fact, Cher says if he chooses to sue, she'll pay his legal fees. I want to start first with Dr. Avis Jones-Weaver. Avis, I tell you, look, this is something that I have spoken out for quite some time. I've said to folks, if you use the N-word to me on my timeline, I will block you on social media. I don't let people call me that in person. I don't allow people to refer to black folks as the N-word in my presence, if that's what you want to do. And for this brother to get fired because he told us he used the word and telling a student don't use it, that to me is absolutely idiotic.
It is idiotic. It is infuriating to say that, well, it's a zero tolerance policy. This just really shows just the idiocy of any sort of policy that does not take into context actually what's happening at that moment. It's amazing to think that it was okay for him to be peppered with that slur over a dozen times. And finally, when he says, do not call me that, he's the one that has to pay with his job, with his livelihood, with his ability to take care of himself and his family. It's absolutely outrageous. And I hope that he takes Cher up on her offer and sues the daylights out of her.
I don't get it, Shermichael. I don't get how this man, in standing up for himself, affirming himself, he gets fired?
Yeah, I mean, Roland, this is a prime example of people being stuck on stupid here. And if I was an attorney, I would certainly advise him to figure out whatever legal means he has to sue. I don't think this was legitimate grounds to fire someone. He wasn't using it as a racial slur. He was merely saying, I am a person who demands respect. You will not use that word towards me. I think he actually should be applauded for that. And as you saw in his own statement, he understands the history behind that word. And he made very clear, look, we have ancestors who were not able to defend themselves in spite of being dehumanized. I have the opportunity and the luxury to do so, and I'm going to take advantage of that. And so I think this was just a stupid decision.
Julian, I make clear to people, I don't want to hear your BS when it comes to the N-word. I don't want to hear this nonsense. Oh, we're reclaiming the word. I remember when Vanity Fair had a big cover story of Kendrick Lamar. And he talked about when a white girl came on stage and was singing one of his lyrics and she used it, he stopped the concert to admonish her. And he was like, can we please just have it to ourselves? And I was like, hell no, get that shit back. I'm like, why the hell would I want a damn word that's used by oppressors against us? Get that bullshit back. Y'all can have it.
I don't know what to say. We live in a society now where you have the younger generation where they will use the N-word freely in a normal conversation. And the sad part is, it's not African Americans. It's Caucasian, it's Hispanic, it's other nationalities that's using the word that's not African Americans. And that's a word that was used to derogatize our race as a whole. When I read the article, I read where the student was black and, Mr. Anderson was just trying to break up the incident between the student and I think the assistant principal. And the student was yelling, explicit language, vulgar language, and using the N-word itself. And, the security guards were saying, hey, do not call me the N-word. And I don't understand how standing up for yourself and just talking to a student and, saying, hey, do not call me this N-word is grounds for immediate termination. And, Mr. Anderson is a union employee, so I know the union will do the right thing and step in and make sure that, it has to be something that you got to show me where it says if you use vulgar language, you are automatically terminated. But he was using it in a way to defend himself. And I'm like, if a man can't defend himself, against an adolescent to teach, to teach an example of, hey, you don't say that to people, then what line of defense does he have? And then Ms. Anderson also talked about where his health insurance is about to run out due to the fact that he doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
So it's great that Sherry is stepping in for the legal fees, but what about, you know, his everyday expenses that he needs to be able to provide for his family? So not having health insurance, that's going to weigh heavily. So now yes, we're talking about the effect he lost his job, but he is concerned about his health insurance.
Julian, I'm really sick and tired of black people with the BS when it comes to the N-word. I mean, because, and look, well, somebody's sitting here saying, well, Roland, had you said it before? Yes, as a kid growing up. But when my ass became grown and had some sense, I stopped. And then people say, man, I can't. I had 2 prominent black journalists tell me, man, I don't know how you did that. I just can't stop. I was like, the hell are you talking about? If your ass can stop eating meat,
hello.
If you can stop drinking alcohol, if you can stop smoking,
you can stop.
Trust me, you can stop using the N-word.
You know, Roland, there has been controversy about the N-word, and I think you have the bottom line. Let's just throw it out. Let the other people keep it. Randall Kennedy, about 15 years ago, I think, wrote a book basically talking about the N-word and exploring who could use it and who couldn't. And I thought that was utter waste of pages, because at the end of the day, what we have to say is no. Have all of us used it before? Probably. And so the movement is to stop using it. When Rosalind Brock was the chair of the board of the NAACP, she actually had a funeral for the N-word in one of their conferences in Detroit. And it was a great idea to say, we can't do this anymore. Regarding the security guard, he was on this job for 11 years.
Yes.
That's significant. It's not clear how he'll be able to get another job. As Julian has said, his health care, but not only his health care, there are many other benefits that have been taken from him. I love the fact that she stepped up, but a whole lot of other people need to step up too. And basically, a judge can file an injunction against that woman who fired. Now, the child is also a matter of concern. A child is pushing the assistant principal. A student is pushing the assistant, putting his hands on the assistant principal. The security guard gets fired. What happened to that child? I think he's probably back at school. So the issue of consequences is also important, and context.
Well, bottom line is, I hope this brother gets his job back, and the idiot who fired him, I hope they get fired. Stupid. And black people, seriously, stop using the damn N-word, okay? Stop. All right, if somebody white, if your boss call you the N-word, you have a fit and be all upset. Well, hell, have the same attitude as somebody black call you the N-word as well. How hard is it to say, what's up, my brother? Hey, my sister. How hard is that? Really, how hard is it? All right, folks, back to that Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, fam, it's almost that time. The holiday season, of course, is, for many of us, the favorite time of the year. Now, whether you celebrate Halloween, Thanksgiving, Ramadan, Christmas, Kwanzaa, New Year's, all of these, of course, from October to the end of the year, this is when you think about spending time with the people you love the most. This is also the time to count your blessings and support those less fortunate and look at how you can have an impact on their lives. Well, I have the perfect opportunity for you to be a holiday hero, have a major impact on other families. Here's the deal. Right now, hundreds of thousands of Americans are sitting in jail without being convicted of a crime. Why? Because they lack the financial resources to pay their bail. Now think about it. If you are arrested for any minor offense, you'll be taken directly to jail. If you don't have bail money, whether it's a few $100 or a few $1,000s, you will stay there until a court date is scheduled. Now that could be days, weeks, or even months. America's bail system is broken and has created a two-tier system of justice, one for the rich and one for the poor. Folks, freedom should be free. That's why the Ebony Foundation is partnering with the Bail Project and is sponsoring the Home by the Holiday campaign. With your help, our goal is to bail out 1,000 people by New Year's Day. Now, how's that for a holiday gift? A donation from you can change someone's life tomorrow, and here's why it is critical. People of color represent upwards of 90% of the jail population across the country. It ranges from 50 to 90% depending upon where you are. Of course, then when they stayed in jail, 90% of people with misdemeanors ended up pleading guilty. However, when bail was paid, 50% of the cases were dismissed and less than 2% received a jail sentence. Sometimes justice needs just us to join the fight. Folks, you can be a holiday hero by donating $25, $50 or more to help the Ebony Foundation bring our brothers and sisters home for the holidays. To donate, go to homebytheholiday.com. That's HOMEBYTHEHOLIDAY.com. And of course, the Ebony Foundation is tied to Ebony Magazine. And so we certainly appreciate the work that they're doing to assist those who are most in need. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
Hey everybody, this is Sherry Shepherd. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, and while he's doing Unfiltered, I'm practicing the wobble. Yes, I am. Because Roland Martin's the one, he will do it backwards, he will do it on the side. He messes everybody up when he gets into the wobble, because he doesn't know how to do it, so he does it backwards. And it just messes me up every single time. So I'm working on it. I got it. You got Roland Martin.
Hi, my name is LaToya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Mac Wilds, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.